The name J. Chris Jensen may not be widely recognized, but you've certainly seen his work. He's the guy who gave Council Bluffs its look. Born in Denmark and arriving in Council Bluffs at age 8, Jens Chris Jensen was an architect who was in the right place at the right time. The town was growing fast. At the start of the 20th century, civic leaders were talking about growth beyond the bounds of speculation. Population doubled in 1 decade. In 1901, almost 1,200 buildings were erected. The Nonpareil reported that there was more building going on in Council Bluffs than there had been in the past 30 years combined. There was no better time to be an architect. The attitude in Council Bluffs, the first half of the 20th century, couldn't have been more different than that prevailing in the latter half. The prevailing notion was Council Bluffs would become to the Great Plains what Chicago had become to the Great Lakes region a couple of decades earlier. Whether the euphoric optimism was fully warranted or not, the city was growing by leaps and bounds. Jensen apprenticed at the Wind Woodworking Mill, where he picked up an interest in building and design. He had no formal training, but started his own architecture business anyway. Though his career found him designing the town's grandest buildings, he started modestly, practicing on himself, building a brick cottage on Pierce Street. The dwelling was unique in that it was only 20 feet wide. But as one visitor observed, arranging inside with such a Pullman-like ingenuity, a person could wander through the narrow abode and still not scratch the wallpaper. At that time, the neighborhood left much to be desired. Pierce Street had become a back alley for Broadway businesses. So he jacked up his house, put it on wheels, and moved it around the corner and up Glen Avenue to a different lot. His first major project was a 5-story addition to the Woodward Candy Factory. His Bennett building was the city's grandest structure. Safeway used his design for over 300 of their stores across the country. Jensen designed a great many homes and developed a reputation for incorporating the surrounding nature into the design. It may have been this eye for the outdoors that led him to associate with like-minded people, such as Parks Commissioners Andrew Graham and H.G. McGee. The latter two were proponents of a scenic drive in the hills north of Big Lake, connecting to the Lincoln Highway north of town and following the ridgetops into town to the area around Fairview Cemetery. Jensen became heavily involved with the project and that neighborhood in general, becoming a partner in the Rohrer Park Improvement Company that developed the area around the Lincoln Monument and Oakland Avenue. He designed the Oakland Court Apartments in 1919 and became president of the Oakland Building Association. He also built a house for himself at 520 Oakland Avenue. Though the commercial style was in vogue at the time, it tended to be rather bland. Jensen was allowed to show his creativity in his design for Thomas Jefferson High School. Businesses and civic leaders were concerned that every major city in Iowa was building one or more new schools, and we risked losing our stature as a progressive town if we didn't do so as well. The somewhat pretentious, ornate Thomas Jefferson High School was planned to send the message that Council Bluffs was very much in the game. Jensen's influence was magnified by his heavy involvement in civic affairs. He served on dozens of boards, committees, and as a city alderman, and even a Washington school crossing guard. Jensen's most significant civic contribution was his 23-year association with the Waterworks. The city had originally outsourced the project, awarding a 25-year contract to the American Construction Company of New York to create a water system and provide water. The company's intent was probably honorable, but they had no experience drawing water from a river. The rest of their client cities all used well water. Perpetual problems with silt and sediment resulted in sufficiently poor water pressure that firefighters couldn't even do their job. It has been speculated that loss from fires, which the fire department was powerless to fight, is the single biggest reason for the demise of the once bustling implement manufacturing industry in the southern part of town. The city took control of the waterworks in 1911. Mayor Maloney appointed J. Chris Jensen and 2 others to the first Waterworks Board of Trustees. Under Jensen's direction, they installed new pumps, replaced dirt reservoirs with concrete facilities, built pumping stations, and solved the problem without even raising water fees. On his 72nd birthday, the designer of 773 buildings commented, "I've lived a long time and I've done everything I wanted to do." He passed away later that year in 1946.
History is never truly lost until it's forgotten. And preserving that history is our mission. The Historical Society of Pottawatomie County in Council Bluffs, Iowa.